Hi, I'm Don Nigro. I wrote Animal Tales, and I'm very pleased that it's being done in St. Petersburg. I've been asked by the theater to answer some questions to help welcome you to this production, so I'll do the best I can. First question. You are close to the world of Russian literature. How does it attract you, and why did Bloch, Mayakovsky, and Bailey become the heroes of your plays? Well, I've um, loved Russian literature since I was a teenager and read War and Peace for the first time, and that led me to Dr. Zhivago and The Master and Margarita, and then in college to Chekhov and Dostoevsky, and later on to Mandelstam and Pushkin and Gogol, and I just um, connected deeply to something in Russian literature. The way I got to Bloch and Bailey and those guys was uh, my my friend, the actress Tatiana Kot, introduced me to the the whole modern world of 20th century Russian writers, Svetaeva and Akhmatova, and I already knew Mandelstam, but these other folks, Bloch and Bailey, and those people were all new to me. And the people who hung out at the Stray Dog Cafe, writers are different too. They're not all the same by any means. I think there is a kind of passion in Russian literature, a very dark view of existence, but an even darker sense of humor about that. The courage to ask the deepest and most complex questions, and a sense lurking in much Russian literature that tragedy and farce are not too far away from each other. They tend to sort of bleed into each other in human experience. Uh, and also in Russian writers, something I love is this sense of no matter what they're up against, whether it's the Tsar's censor or Tolstoy fighting with his demons about whether to be a saint or a writer, or Chekhov's anguish about Stanislavski messing up his plays in the theater, whatever it is, Russian writers both they look right into the eye of they don't flinch, and they endure. Somehow you get the sense that they're going to endure no matter what. There's a lot of courage in Russian literature, and a lot of humor, and a lot of darkness, and a lot of joy, a lot of honesty, and it's just overwhelmingly wonderful, and it connects to something in me. I'm not sure. Um, the next question is, many of your stories are connected to Russian literature, and you've written over 400 plays. Why do you think your works in Russia were until recently unknown? Uh, I don't know. I I'm very bad at understanding why my plays catch on someplace and never manage to elsewhere. I am well published. A lot of my work is published, but I'm not particularly well represented ordinarily. So I've always sort of flown under the radar, and I'm not a Broadway kind of playwright. I'm not the sort of playwright who can make a lot of money, or derive a lot of fame and notoriety off of one play, but I've written a lot of plays. They're rather odd plays. They're mostly done by rather odd theaters, experimental theaters, but they've managed to creep all over the world. And the reason they finally did get to Russia, I know the answer to that question. The reason is Victor Weber, who is the translator of these plays. He stumbled across my plays a few years ago and really liked them and started translating them one after another, and then sending them out to theaters. And miraculously, the theaters loved the plays and started doing them. So now I'm produced quite a lot in Russia, and I'm very grateful to Victor. I don't know I don't know exactly why these theaters reacted so positively to my work, but I'm very glad that maybe my feeling of connection to Russian literature and Russian culture is to some extent reflected in the plays or reciprocated. I hope so. Third question. If we talk about animal tales, on the one hand, you entered the beaten track laid by La Fontaine. On the other hand, this path is not easy, even dangerous, requires an extraordinary sense of humor, a sense of proportion, an observance of a certain balance in creating an image. Was it easy or difficult for you to create these stories? It was easy. And it isn't always easy. Sometimes it's very difficult. Every play is different. The experience of writing every play, I always feel like I'm having to reinvent how to write a play every time I write something, because it sort of, in the writing, it eventually tells you the sort of conventions you'll need to use and how you're going to need to write it. Some plays are very difficult. My subconscious gives me things in fragments, and it's like putting together a puzzle. It's like you're trying to put together a jigsaw puzzle, and you don't have all the pieces, and you don't know where they go. So you're constantly acquiring more pieces of the puzzle from your subconscious, and you're trying to rearrange them and make some kind of sense out of them. And then eventually you put them all together, and you can see the picture that the puzzle makes. But it may take a long time, and you may never get a complete picture. So some plays are difficult like that. The Animal Tales plays were different. Just there was a voice in my head, and it kept talking, and I just wrote it down. It was one of those plays that was sort of a gift. The way it started was there was a flock of wild turkeys that kept walking every day down the hill from the wooded hillside behind our house to the neighbor's house where he was feeding them corn cobs. So I watched these turkeys every day walking very solemnly through the woods, making little rustling noises and strange sounds. And they seemed at first to me to be kind of stupid animals, but then I wondered if that was just my limitation, thinking that they seemed stupid, because I know from experience that people who are dumber than you sometimes think they're smarter than you, because people who are smarter are sometimes thinking about things that dumb people have never thought about, and they don't react the same way dumb people consider is normal to react. So they think you're stupid. So I thought maybe I'm doing these turkeys a disservice. Maybe they actually have very complex inner lives, and I started wondering what they were thinking of, and that was the turkey play. And then we had a groundhog that kept coming into our window wells and trying to get in the window of just this one particular window well, and it would come every day and do that. Not the others, just this one. And I couldn't figure out why, so I started trying to imagine what that groundhog was thinking, and that's how these plays happened. But they must have wanted to get out, because once they started talking, all I had to do was write it down. Fourth question. Among the 11 mini plays that are included in Animal Tales, there are several monologues. Taking away a partner from the performers of the roles of the platypus, groundhog, mice, or chipmunk, and prohibiting the use of animal costumes, you deliberately put the actor in a difficult situation. No, I never deliberately want to put an actor in a difficult situation. They have a hard enough life as it is. I want to make it easy for them. But the reason some of these are monologues is because the animals are alone. They're alone, and they're lonely, or they're trapped in an obsession. I know something about that, so that's why those are monologues. As for animal costumes, I'm trying to get inside the animals to imagine what they're thinking, and I don't want that costume between us. I mean, it's hard to look into someone's soul if they're wearing a dog suit. So you want to look right into their eyes and see deeply into them. My feeling about animals is that they're our cousins. They're just like us. They don't have the intellectual capacity we have, but they have pretty much the same emotions. At least mammals, and probably birds, seem to me at least to have very similar emotions to the kind that I have. They love and they hate, and they're afraid, and they're happy, and they play, and they get jealous, and their feelings get hurt, and they forgive you or they don't forgive you. Really, just from being around dogs and cats all the time, I don't think any honest person can say that animals don't have feelings like us. It's just that we can articulate ours a little better because we have language and they don't. So I'm giving them a voice here. And what we're really seeing is probably not what animals are thinking and feeling. It's more like the place in which human beings do their best to imagine what animals are thinking and feeling. Last question. Have you imagined the recipient of Animal Tales? For whom are these 11 stories written? I don't know. Sometimes I write for particular actors, but other times I just listen to the voices and they speak, and I write down what they say. So therefore, whoever wants them